Welcome back to the news today. This is One on One. Abraham B. Yehoshua is one of the most well-known Israeli novelists, essayists, and playwrights, published as A.B. Yehoshua. His works have been published and translated in 28 countries, and many have been adapted for film, television, theater, and even opera. Mr. Yehoshua is also an activist in the Israeli peace movement, attended the signing of the Geneva Accord, and freely airs his political views in essays and interviews, which we're counting on today. Well, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Truly an honor to have you with us today. We're going to speak less on the literary side, more on the political scene today in Israel, which I know you're heavily involved in. We'll go right at the heart of it. You're an outstanding critic of the Israeli occupation of the West Bank, of Palestinian territories today, but you're also a critic of the Palestinians themselves.
Yes.
Where do you find that place in the argument?
We are going slowly to a disaster, to a binational state. And you know that binational state is impossible in many places in the world, but of course it will be impossible between two people that are so different from each other, two different religions, two different economical situations, two people that were fighting for about 120 years. It's not like, let's say, the Slovaks and the Czechs. And even you see the Scots are now intending to separate themselves from the English. Now, we are going to a kind of a binational state, and I don't understand how we are doing this stupidity. And the Palestinians also, and I accuse them that they are not doing enough to come to a separation. Of course, even when there will be two-state solution, there will be a lot of links between these two states. There will be also a kind of a confederation, but it is very important that every people will have his own territory and his own identity.
Well, you're talking about the two-state solution here.
Yes.
Do you really believe that the majority still of Palestinians, of Israelis, support that notion, that believe in the existence of a two-state solution?
Officially. But what we are doing is that we are, I would say, connecting ourselves day by day to the Palestinian by putting the settlements. Even if, let's say, Prime Minister, if he was saying, I am for the defense of the security of the Israelis. Okay, he does not believe, and of course there are so many problems with the CIS and all these movements in the Arab world. But still, okay, you can keep the army for about another 100 years until you will be totally sure that you have security. And after the experience of Gaza, you have even the legitimacy to do it. But not to put civilians inside the Palestinian cities and create such a mess, such an hostility, because we don't understand, we Jews, that territory is identity. When you put even a house, a Jewish house near Hebron, not in a you are taking part of the identity of the Palestinian, and not only the question of, the place, but the territory is identity.
Let's speak about the West Bank settlements specifically here, the settlement enterprise today. What resolution do you see for the existence of these settlements? The Palestinians, by and large, don't want any of them to remain there in any peace agreement. How can Israel realistically either withdraw these people from their homes, or what kind of resolution do you envision?
I propose the question of a Jewish minority inside the Palestinian state. I don't know, of course, we are speaking about the blocks. There are the Gush Etzion blocks. This is the only blocks that can be annexed to Israel. And you can give something in return to the Palestinian. But you can give to the settlers the option. If you want, you can stay there as a minority. We have 20% of our citizens are Arabs, and they are living in their homeland. And also the Israelis that will live as a Jewish, or say Israeli, not Jewish, Israeli minority with Palestinian citizenship, with also Israeli citizenship. They can vote also to the Knesset, to the parliament, but they will be citizens in Palestine. And I think if the Palestinians will know that for this concession they will get 67 borders, I
You believe
I
there's a chance for
convince-
that plan?
Yes, I convince that they will agree to this.
Do you see the Israeli government moving in that direction? Prime Minister Netanyahu, how do you feel he's managing the situation?
I think this is, if he speaks, and he speaks honestly, that he wants the two-state solution, because he is also afraid of the binational state. So what is the other solution? You cannot evacuate now 100 or 200,000 settlers. You can give them compensation if they want, but if they want to stay, and why not they will not stay? Because there will be links between these two states. There will be a lot of areas of cooperation.
Speaking of a link and an area of cooperation, we can't get away from Jerusalem here, so central in the narrative here in the conflict. You grew up in Jerusalem. Now,
Yes, I'm fifth generation in Jerusalem.
That's an incredible concept here in a country with such rich history. Born in the mid-30s now, you grew up during a very tumultuous time in the city there. How do you see your childhood and the terrible warfare that existed at that time compared to today, as we see so much unrest still today in the year 2014 in Jerusalem?
You see, what was happening? Jerusalem was a city that was well defined. After the Six-Day War, the Israeli government had annexed villages that never were annexed, were part of Jerusalem. So first of all, let them go away back to the Palestinian state and see Jerusalem as it is. And in Jerusalem, that will be far more restrained. You can divide in the question of the Jewish neighborhood and the Arab, especially the old city. I see the solution of the old city as a different solution, not under a government sovereignty. This will be a religious sovereignty. This will be a kind of a Vatican. And we can do wonderful things with this 1 square kilometers. That's all.
So more in lines with 1947, the UN's plan internationalizing Jerusalem to some
not
degree.
all Jerusalem, I don't believe, but the question of the old city, in which there are all the most important religious sites of Muslims, of Jews, of Christians, we can make of it a kind of a diamond. It can compete the Vatican, because the people will come there, and this will be the monotheism, because what is I would say the message of Judaism to the world? It was that there is one God, and this was the inspiration for Christianity and Muslim. So all is so restrained, and we can make a religious domination, a religious sovereignty of the three religions, and then take it from national flag, the Jewish flag or the Palestinian flag, no flags there, but only...
Jerusalem, as we mentioned, 2014, so much strife in the streets today. I'd like to get away from the image of Jerusalem as a modern failure of sorts in terms of what the Israeli government has tried to create there. Are you optimistic? What do you see as the future for Jerusalem? Besides just division, what can the city do?
I think that in Jerusalem there can be this kind, just divide Jerusalem into three parts, as I say. The Arab part, outside the walls of the old city. The Jewish part, in which there will be the Jewish and the Israeli citizens.
But is this a failure for the Zionist dream, the division of Jerusalem, or is it just reality?
This must be done with a lot of skill. It is very difficult, but it can be done. It can be done because you can give what I will call status to the Arabs there, to the Palestinian, as there will be they will have perhaps their capital in El Bira.
Which has been central to their demands, yes.
Or in Ramallah. But there will be, I would say, the cultural institutions, all things like that. If the questions of all the West Bank will be solved, and only the problem of Jerusalem will remain, there will be enough imagination, enough inspiration to make it.
It's been a pleasure and an honor to have you today. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
And that's all for our program this evening. We'll see you again tomorrow.